Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Vermont House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. It is Friday, February 21st, 2025 at 1 in the afternoon. So we're back from lunch to continue our discussions on the budget. We have members of Serve, Learn, Earn with us. Kate, thank you for joining us this morning or this afternoon. Time's flying.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having us, Chair Marcotte, committee members. My name is Kate Gluckman. I'm the director of Serve, Learn, Earn. We're a workforce development collaborative here in Vermont. I'm joined by our 4 executive directors from our partner organizations today. And after I speak, you'll have an opportunity to hear from them about the specifics of each of their programs. We were grateful for the opportunity to come speak to your committee at the beginning of the session. That may feel like an eternity ago for you. You've heard hundreds of hours of testimony since then, and quite frankly, at least to me, the world feels a bit different now than it did then. So our goal today is to remind you of our work to build a robust workforce here in Vermont through paid training and service opportunities. I'll lay out why we're a strong investment for the legislature and remind you of our ask for this year's budget. And I'll provide some new context on how the changes at the federal level are impacting our work with Vermonters. To give a reminder about the structure and purpose of Serve, Learn, Earn, we're founded in 2020. Serve, Learn, Earn provides a continuum of programming working with Vermonters ages 14 years and older, with career exploration, early professional experience, and sector-specific training programs. Serve, Learn, Earn serves Vermonters at every stage of their career development. Often our participants come from marginalized communities, and through our paid cohort-based training and service programs are able to build technical skills, leadership development, transferable skills, build community, and connect with high-quality employment. We are partners to our K-12 institutions, our CTE centers, our higher ed institutions, the Vermont Department of Labor, Hireability, and many other organizations working to build Vermont's workforce. When the legislature invests in Serve, Learn, Earn, it helps strengthen a coalition and network-based approach to workforce development in the state. A reminder of some of our outcomes. Each year we serve 600 Vermonters across the state, and you can see where they live in this map, providing training in the building trades, conservation, agriculture, and education. Our programs provide trainees the opportunity to earn industry-recognized credentials, college and high school credit, gain on-the-job training, and when desired, direct connection to ready-to-hire employers. In 2024, we saw 105 of our work-ready participants land a job at the end of programming, with many more becoming employed shortly thereafter. You'll see some of the 370 employers that we work with across the state in the last 4 years here on our slide. We also have completed 180 projects just in 2024 in the areas of flood recovery, affordable and accessible housing, working in natural land assessment and restoration, sustainable agriculture, and community education projects. These projects provide our participants hands-on training and the opportunity to give back. Investment in Serve, Learn, Earn not only is an investment in workforce development, but an investment in the sustainability, affordability, and vitality of our communities. Our ask this fiscal year is to increase our $500,000 base budget funding to $2.5 million. So we are located in the FPR base budget currently and receive one-time allocations. Our programs cost annually over $10.5 million, and public funding has helped us leverage $8 million annually of additional resources. When funders see that Serve, Learn, Earn is part of the state's workforce development strategy, they are also eager to invest in Vermonters. So specifically, we are asking you to include us in your letter, your budget
So
letter.
your base funding is 2 million.
Our base funding currently is 500,000. We're asking you to increase that to 2.5. Yep, so an additional 2 million.
I was reading that. Just,
My apologies.
you were increasing.
You can increase it as much as you'd like.
Keep talking.
Yeah.
When I first looked at it, it looked like your base funding was 2 million and
Yeah.
you're asking for another half of, but it's 500,000 you're looking for.
Yes, sir. Yeah. You can see the impact of state funding over the last 4 years on our programs here, right? We are able to serve more people in more communities across Vermont. We're having deeper engagement with them, training, more intense training opportunities, and we're creating more career-ready skills. Lastly, what's changed since we last spoke? I'll start with the bad news first. Like most programs in Vermont, we have been negatively impacted by the federal funding freezes. My colleagues will detail this for each of their programs, but we know that the administration's anti-DEI, anti-climate initiatives hurt our progress in Vermont to build a robust workforce, able to address our current housing and flood resilience challenges and needs. Cuts to funding that promotes women's training in the trades, training in clean energy or climate resilience, and programs that support young adults in service opportunities, all are threats to the progress we've made in the state so far. What's some good news since we last talked? We are encouraged and energized by our meeting with Sabina Haskell in the new Office of Workforce Strategy and Development. As she builds her focus, obviously she's still getting her sea legs, but as she builds her work, we look forward to collaborating with her and building a comprehensive network of training opportunities across the state. We're also really excited to be working with Jay Ramsey and DOL through his work with the National Governors Association Policy Academy on Service to Career Pathways. Through discussions with Serve Vermont, which is our state service commission for AmeriCorps, and Serve Learn Earn, Jay is helping to formalize how DOL can work with and share data with, most importantly, programs like ours. And lastly, we've just gotten the green light to submit a final application to register our pre-apprenticeship, our new pre-apprenticeship in timber framing at VYCC. So we've been working with DOL to get that ready. This is the first pre-apprenticeship program that will be registered in the state. And it will enable our participants to connect with companies focused on building sustainable housing. So one such company is a company called Vermont Timber Frames, is working to build modular timber frame homes. So not only doing it sustainably, but doing it at a price point that's affordable for middle income Vermonters. I want to end my notes before passing it along to my colleagues, just with a sense of gratitude. We're grateful for the past funding and the support that this committee has shown us. We're grateful for your committee to build an inclusive workforce in Vermont, and for your focus on youth career development opportunities. Those two things we think are critical for Vermont's success. You have a very difficult job, and perhaps this year even more difficult. And so we're just grateful for all that you do. Chair Marcotte, should I take questions now or wait till the end?
I think if people have questions. Michael?
So what federal cuts have you experienced that have happened?
So the one that, well, I'll let some of my colleagues talk. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
More specifically, Vermont Works for Women, we had a federal USDOL Women in Non-Traditional Occupations grant. We were granted it this past fall, about $400,000 to expand pre-apprenticeship programs and add advanced manufacturing pre-apprenticeship programs for women in non-traditional occupations. That was paused under the presidential executive order. We are under the temporary restraining order. So each week when we are able to pull down funds, we keep plugging along, but those are temporary. So that's immediate $400,000 we are impacted. And then we have DI initiatives where we work with construction companies or industries to provide gender equity services and recruitment support. And a lot of those specific line items in those grants have been cut that are specific to DI initiatives. Pardon me?
For the record. Your name.
Which contracts have been?
Who are you?
Your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ronnie. Ronnie Basden, I'm with Vermont Works for Women.
I think that the grants that Ronnie mentioned have been the only ones who have been frozen. But we are very much concerned about AmeriCorps funding. Many of our programs are in the cycle to apply for the next year. And those are really up in the air, especially because many of them are promote, workforce development for marginalized communities as well as climate-related trainings. So there's been a lot of effort to sort of retool those, remove language that might trigger or place red flags on those. So I think that we have more uncertainty for 2026 than we do for 2025 at this. Yeah.
I would say Breck Knopf with Vermont Youth Conservation Corps. I think there's real uncertainty about this current year of AmeriCorps funding.
Oh.
Even though we've secured the grant, the state commissions are trying to navigate compliance and also trying to fulfill the programs that we mapped out when we submitted the grants 3 years ago. 3-year funding cycle, and so you write a grant for one administration changes. And this current administration is not supportive of the previous administration, so any funding that you secured in that time is vulnerable.
Any other questions before I pass it on? Okay, I'd like to invite Ronnie up. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm Ronnie Basden, Executive Director at Vermont Works for Women. Apologies. Thank you all for having me here today and for allowing us to speak about the value of Serve, Learn, and Earn funding for our programs across Vermont. I think I would say, and as you all know, Vermont will not be able to make up the loss of federal funding, so impacting current and ongoing workforce development programming only continues to put us behind where we hope to be in the future. But Vermont Works for Women has been training women and youth in non-traditional occupations since 1987. Providing hard skills training, providing career exploration, and really providing the wraparound supports to not only build more diverse and inclusive work environments, but to ensure we're providing learning environments that are building feeder programs for women as they get into their career goals. Our current Serve, Learn, and Earn programs run all across the state. We're in Brattleboro, Newport, Linden, Rutland, Burlington, Hannaford, and more. We serve anywhere from middle school all the way up to late adulthood. Our programs really focus on building confidence within non-traditional occupations for women, building a curiosity in tackling these careers, and supporting women going into the trades more specifically. Our Trailblazers Trades Training Program is a pre-apprenticeship program that runs in a cohort-based model. These are 7-week programs that pair the hard skills training necessary to be job ready, but also paired with the wraparound supports to ensure there's retention within these fields, to really help with conflict resolution, to talk through barriers that may have impacted women historically navigating these careers, to support advocacy from other tradeswomen, to really build a network of support in growing these industries. We also work with employers through this program. So any employers that work with the Trailblazers training program are required to do gender equity trainings through our organization. These are free to employers. They're a benefit to help talk about barriers that have impacted recruiting marginalized populations into their businesses, and they are free to employers as well. We are very excited that through the federal funding, we were being able to expand these pre-apprenticeship programs, not only in trades careers such as construction, plumbing, electrical, weatherization, but we are very excited to expand programming into advanced manufacturing. Specifically, we're looking at the semiconductor industry. We're partnering with University of Vermont, Global Foundries, the Vermont Manufacturing Collaborative, and other employers such as Chroma Technologies and Husky across the state to really build entryway pathways for women and girls to enter the advanced manufacturing field. So it's a supported on-ramp for a population that has been historically left out of these opportunities, and to really provide a supportive and structured environment to learn the skills to make you job ready, but then also give you the confidence to really tackle what these multitude of careers have to offer. So we are cautiously optimistically moving forward and developing that program with a hope to launch that this fall, while all of our trades training pre-apprenticeship programs run throughout the year.
We also want to start young. So our Serve, Learn, and Earn programs also help support our high school programs, which is our LIFT program, launching inclusive futures in the trades. This program is specifically designed to build career exposure to girls in high school and gender expansive individuals to either tackle career and tech ed programs that exist within the high school programs or for post-secondary opportunities. So that way they can understand that there are a multitude of post-secondary opportunities, whether that is advanced education, continuing training, or going into an apprenticeship pathway that are available to them here in Vermont. Right now, Vermont Works for Women continues to see a demand in all of these programs. Our programs don't have fancy marketing or ads. These are word of mouth and how our programs build. Each of our programs continues to see demand. We are filling cohorts in each new community that we go to, and we continuing to see employers want to engage with our work. This shows us that there is an untapped potential right here in Vermont that we can access to help build up our workforce needs. We know that there are those individuals, whether it's youth or adult women, who are looking for careers that can be more economically viable for them. And we know that there are trades industries here in Vermont that are desperate for more labor. So we can help meet our state workforce needs by ensuring that the potential that we have here in the state find these training programs. Serve, Learn, and Earn is just one mechanism to provide a variety of different training opportunities to help meet those individual needs so that we can ensure our workforce is not only trained, but really ready to tackle these jobs. And I'm happy to take any questions.
So you have teachers that train, I'm looking at your website, 6 through 8 and 9 through 12. Any consideration to, because I'm seeing here after school opportunities, are you partnering with our career centers?
Yes, so we work with Vermont After School to help run any of our middle school programming. And then, yes, we work directly with our career and tech centers. So we not only provide camps and after school programs, but we provide career challenge days where we bring sending middle schools into the career and tech centers so that they can get that hands-on exposure to start those conversations early before they even enter 9th grade.
And is that year round? I see here, I don't know anything about
No, that's okay. I love these questions.
Quite frankly, I apologize.
No, it's fine. All of our programs are year round. So our youth programming is after school and summer camp. So they run year round. And then our career challenge days run in the spring with certain tech centers that we've partnered with. And then in the fall, we host our Women Can Do conference, which is a high school exposure conference for girls and gender expansive youth. It brings in 90 plus employers. We take over Randolph's campus, and it's a hands-on experience of excavators and trades and welding and logging and all different careers to really build for high school students. And our website has a ton of information, but happy to always answer them if you have more. Well, thank you all so much. And I will turn it over to Kim with Audubon of Vermont. Oh, yes.
I'll ask everybody,
Okay.
reduction in federal dollars. Just kind of pressure that it'll put on you. How much pressure that will fall back onto your employees?
Well, with the federal funding, we've hired staff to especially build these new pre-apprenticeship pathways and recruit and train them. So it would have immediate impacts if we lost funding on staff. That staff is our highest cost.
Are they your staff?
They are our staff, yes.
So you realize that if you have to let them go, that you have to pay your reimbursable employer, you have to pay actual expenses
We know, yes, it's a very big hit.
built into your. We went through this during COVID when it was very difficult for our nonprofit community to try to absorb those costs.
Yes.
Can be significant.
It's a very significant, especially federal funding. Serve, Learn, and Earn helped us actually leverage getting federal funding. It is hard for Vermont to access federal funding, but it allows us the growth opportunities to do it. It is a massive impact to not be able to have those dollars. We had just been granted it in October of 24. So to think the impact these can have, I think that is why right now we are going to build as fast as we can and draw down funds as quickly as we can, focusing on federal dollars first. So using those dollars first to build, and then hoping to have contingency plans if that happens. With that program specifically, we have had very specific conversations with UVM and employers who have said that they could try to help where they can. Again, we know that we won't make up the federal losses to the state, but it's a way that they've recognized that they need these programs. They are not getting entry-level positions in manufacturing right now. And if they want to grow what is quickly becoming one of Vermont's largest exports, we need entry-level workers.
If if you don't have a resumption in federal funding and you have to lay people off, any of the funding that we might provide have to be used to pay your unemployment expenses?
No, we would not do that. Yeah. Honestly, what the funding we receive for Serve, Learn, and Earn right now does not actually support the new pre-apprenticeship program that was 100% funded through federal funding. So right now our trades funding hopefully can remain and continue as is. So this would directly impact new programming and any new development that we had hoped to create. Yes. Thank you.
Afternoon. Good.
Happy Friday.
It's Friday.
I was like, wait a second, isn't it Friday? I'm already messing up. So hello to all of you. My name is Kim Girton. Thank you very much for having us here. I work for Audubon Vermont as the director of the Green Mountain Audubon Center, which is located in Huntington. I have worked for Audubon for 25 years. So I do care very deeply about Audubon's mission, which is to protect birds and the places they need today and tomorrow. And one way that we are going to do that is by making sure that we have a strong conservation workforce working to protect those places that birds, and I'm going to add the people part, and that people need well into the future. And that's why we're a part of the Serve, Learn, Earn initiative. Over the last 4 years, Audubon Vermont has invested time, effort, and resources into building what we call our Youth Conservation Leadership Program. So this is a program that engages teens and young adults in our environmental education work, in our policy work, and in our conservation work. This program has 5 branches, so we're doing a lot. We offer counselor and training program and a junior conservation tech program for teens. So that's working with teens who are 14 to 18 years old. We also offer internships and seasonal educator positions. And those internships are in 3 different program areas: conservation, policy, and environmental education. And then in addition, we do host 3 AmeriCorps members through the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board as well. So before Serve, Learn, and Earn, like back before 2020, I thought it'd be important to let you all know that at Audubon, we were only able to hire 4 seasonal educators each year, and they were all paid minimum wage at the time. We were only able to host 1 AmeriCorps member at that time. And then we had an amazing internship program, but they were all unpaid positions. So the only folks who could come and partake in our internship program were people who could afford to do that. With the Serve, Learn, Earn funding, Audubon is now reaching 40 teens and young adults every year in paid positions. And all of those people, even the teens, 14-year-olds, are being paid a minimum of $15 an hour. So we're really proud of that. And then going back to Kate's slide that you saw earlier, that showed the career exploration and the early professional experience, most of Audubon's programming, Serve, Learn, Earn programming, falls into those 2 buckets. And to start with, just to share, a glimpse at some of our programming, the teens that we work with, for most of them, it's their very first job. Audubon's offering them this opportunity to come and interview and make a resume. And the first program I wanted to share about is our teen program called the Junior Conservation Tech Program. This is a program where teens come, and what we do is we give them a snapshot of all different types of conservation work, working with different conservation biologists, so that they get a feel for what's out there in terms of a career. So they come, they work on meaningful conservation and trail projects. They learn how to work with hand tools on small scale construction projects that are linked to trail maintenance. Last summer, this was a very cool project. We had what we call JCTs, our junior conservation techs, out, and they were repairing flood damaged trails at the Audubon Center. And this year, our new cohort will be out doing native plantings in riparian areas where there's been flood damage. And the projects, when we set them up, are at a scale and a skill level that are just right for teens, so that they leave our program with more confidence and a huge sense of accomplishment when they look back and see, like, there wasn't a trail there and now there's this amazing trail. And I will add too that these are really important projects for our community. The trail system at Audubon is free. It's open to the public year round, so people can go, and we have thousands of people who utilize those trails. And then in addition, with all of the plantings that they'll be doing this summer, we're going to be using those as demonstrations for community workshops about how to build flood resilience in communities by making sure that riparian areas are healthy. So then moving on, or actually before I move on, those teen programs too, I want to say really are helpful because they're acting as feeder programs into our other SLE opportunities that are out there. So then moving along, our seasonal educators and our environmental education interns, they work with us helping to lead our year-round environmental education programs. And these are programs that we offer for children ages 3 to 13. So they are with us learning to hone their skills in age-appropriate lesson development and program delivery, group management, and mentoring. A lot of the folks that we see in these two training areas are motivated to pursue a degree in education or to seek jobs as environmental educators, childcare providers, and teachers. And in fact, just as examples, last year we had 2 of our seasonal educators move into roles as educators. One is a para-educator at the Shelburne Community School, and then another took a role as an AmeriCorps member doing outdoor education at the Northwood Stewardship Center, which is in East Charleston. Our conservation interns, they go out and they work all summer long, one-on-one with conservation biologists around the state. They learn bird monitoring techniques. Some of them are lucky enough to get to work with a master bird bander to get the skills that they need to become a bird bander. And that's a very unique opportunity within the state of Vermont. They also learn to develop maps and use GIS mapping software. They conduct forest and sugar bush habitat assessments. And they learn to, take those habitat assessments, and then it's important that they can then take that information and relay that information to forest landowners so that they get that opportunity to really build their communication skills as well. All of the skills that our conservation interns use or learn, they are directly applicable to real life work in conservation. And our conservation interns have gone on to take jobs in the Agency of Agriculture, Agency of Transportation, the Champlain Valley Office of Economic Opportunity, Atlas Environmental, and the Vermont Center for Eco Studies. We also have strong relationships with the University of Vermont, Middle Erie College. We have professors who know our internship programs well, and they help to promote our internships with students. So some of the students that come to us are also receiving college credit. So we're offering opportunities for them to get credit as well as being paid. Lastly, in terms of our programs that I'll share about today is the AmeriCorps program. And again, this is through VHCB that we work with AmeriCorps. The 3 AmeriCorps positions will either serve a 6-month term with us or an 11-month term. And they work in environmental education or conservation. And when they come to us, they basically become part of our staff. They come on, they attend staff meetings, staff retreats, they go through trainings with us. The opportunity that they have, well, they come and they learn what it's like to be in a conservation organization year round. Many of our AmeriCorps members serve a 2nd term with us. And then move on to jobs. And some of the jobs that we have seen AmeriCorps members move into include environmental educators at Shelburne Farms, as well as environmental stewards at Shelburne Farms. And I will say that Audubon Vermont has also hired 2 AmeriCorps members onto our team as full-time staff. Then in terms of certifications at Audubon and credentials, many of our seasonal educators become certified in first aid and CPR certification, which is a 3-year, it's valid for 3 years. But then I also just wanted to share that the National Audubon Society, which we are a part of, offers a whole suite of professional development programs through a program called Workday Learning. So when our interns and our AmeriCorps members come on, they can take online skills training, some of which offer certificates of completion. And examples of topics would include things like leading a team, project management, creating presentations. So in closing, and I know I've talked for a while here, Vermont needs a next generation of conservation leaders, and they're going to help us to solve all of the daunting environmental crises that are happening right now. And that's why Audubon is investing in our youth and helping to move them into the conservation workforce. So thank you very much for your time and your consideration. And the one other thing that I would mention, because I didn't chime in with the federal funding, is that at Audubon Vermont, about 25% of our budget is federal funds, and the vast majority of those funds are going to funding our conservation work. Right now, the grants that we had that are in contract already, we have several of them that just aren't paying out right now. They're just on hold. And then we did have one grant that we had just secured, but it was not under contract yet. And that right now is also on hold. So that could impact the type of work that our conservation biologists, of course, are able to do and the types of offerings for our interns. And then with the AmeriCorps program, we did just receive word from VHCB that we should go ahead and apply for an April 2nd deadline, but they're unsure where the federal funds will land. So
Does that affect will that affect your ability to pay your staff or have to reduce staff?
for the AmeriCorps funds, no, the AmeriCorps funding, if it doesn't come through, we won't be able to get the AmeriCorps members. And for us, that's more of a capacity issue. Like, they help us to reach thousands of kids every year through our education programs. And so if we don't, if we're not able to get an AmeriCorps member, that will impact us for sure. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, do you all pair with the our regional conservation districts in the work that you do?
I'm not sure if I know what you mean. I'm
So,
sorry.
Yeah, Vermont has we're divvied up into how many conservation districts do we have?
Oh,
I think there are 12 of them, but they're kind of like loosely county based, and will do a lot of the similar work that you do as far as floodwater remediation, working with wetlands, a lot of conservation work that's mostly geared towards landowners and that sort of stuff.
So let me say this. If someone was here on my conservation team, they would be able to answer this question so much better than me. And I'm sorry that I'm not able to answer it, but I can get back to you on that. So let me go back and talk with my conservation team and I will let you know. Okay, thank you for the question. Yeah.
And I do know that your conservation staff works with foresters, which I would believe would be conservation districts too, because those Audubon trains foresters how to assess forests in terms of biodiversity, and so they have there. And so I'm sure that they're connected, if not in the districts, at least county-wise.
UICC does projects in partnership with Audubon, and oftentimes the way in which those projects are selected, because the regional conservation districts have identified those as high priority projects.
Okay, so that's how it works. So it comes to
So sometimes it would come to us to put a crew on the ground and then partnership with Audubon as they're enhancing the learning outcomes.
okay. Thank you.
questions?
Thanks so much. So I'm going to pass things over to Tom Longstreth from Resource.
Again,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm Tom Longstreth, and just because I thought that I would one up Kim, I've been a resource executive director for 29 years. And you can tell from the lack of hair on the top of my head, but so, resource, or full name is Resource Nonprofit Community Enterprise, really, we're all about creating opportunity, and that extends to the things that we keep out of the landfill through our 4 reuse stores, but it also extends to the opportunity we create for people who have been disadvantaged, who are unable to get jobs or trying to overcome various barriers to employment. It's the key piece for resources that we're trying to connect these 3 parts of our mission, which is job training, the poverty relief, and the environmental stewardship. So the ideal type of arrangement is something like we have where we're teaching weatherization, or we're teaching construction. And through those projects, we are serving low-income people who need housing or need improvements to their housing. In that way, we're both protecting the environment by making these homes better, use less energy, but we're also helping the people who live in that house because they lower their energy costs, or they have a house when they didn't have a house in the first place. The benefit to the trainees of that service is that they're developing confidence. They're actually in a position to give back, to serve others. And that's a real, I think, mental mind shift, and gives our trainees a sense of self-worth which they often don't have when they enter the program. And I think that's probably true for all of our SLA partners. So I thought as a way of organizing what I'd like to tell you, I thought I'd sort of pose a few rhetorical questions. First is, what's the problem we're trying to solve? And I think that the key issue, and I think this is not just an important problem for the state, is the disconnect between people who want to work and employers who can't find enough workers. And there's really what our programs do is find people who are not working or are marginally working, who lack key skills that employers need. We then deliver those skills, as well as give the trainees new confidence and a new sense of self-worth. And they're able to translate that with our support into good paying jobs. Along with that, we deliver credentials that are industry recognized that allow those trainees to both get that first job, but have mobility, so that they have validated skills that they can move into other areas, other employers, since that first placement may not be the best one, and they need that. And that's, I think, creates a more mobile, economically dynamic economy. So the next question is, and let me actually, the other problem we're trying to solve is just the challenge of not enough housing. We're teaching, employers, especially in construction, we have a real shortage of people able to do the work. And if we don't have people to do the work, we're not going to build enough housing, even if there's enough money, enough land, other things. So I think that's a key priority for Resource. This past year, one of the other problems we were trying to solve is related to the disasters. And Resource was impacted in 2023 ourselves. One of our facilities in Barre was flooded. We were beneficiaries of a lot of community outpouring of support. And so this past year, we've devoted 5 of our construction crews that are training people have been committed to doing high priority flood rebuilding work. And I think we've worked on over 30 different properties, various levels of construction, from fully demolishing and rebuilding homes to more of mucking out flooded basements and the like. So who we serve both youth and adults. Our youth build programs one is in Barre, one is in Burlington, but each serve a pretty wide area. Geographically, we have relationships with, each area, I think perhaps 3 or 4 sending schools where schools are sending us students who are not succeeding. We used to only serve high school dropouts, but increasingly we're serving in-school youth who, rather than officially dropping out, are actually co-enrolled at their sending school and at resource, so that those schools contract with us to complete and help the student graduate. They spend half their time in a classroom, half the time on a job site. And it's a year-long program where they are doing service for the community, able to give back while finishing their academic learning and getting vocational training. We also serve adults, and those are mostly through our construction 101s intensives. We have construction 101, weatherization 101, HVAC, and we last year piloted a heavy equipment 101. We also have a 201, which is more green building. It's a next level of training for folks who really are interested in trying to build construction, sort of some of the more advanced construction techniques that will help reduce homes' carbon impact, the amount of energy it uses, the cost of that home to the occupants. The training, so why does it, I guess the other thing I should say about the trainees, I mean, it's, both youth and adults, real range of ages, men and women, although because of its non-traditional trade, we certainly serve more men than women. We do co-enroll some trainees who will graduate from a Vermont Works for Women course, then enroll in one of Resources courses. And so I think that's common throughout the partnership, is that one of the potential placements is not with an employer, but into another training program when that makes sense. Most of the time, it makes sense to go directly into a job where you make money and can support your family. But in some certain situations, that additional time, additional skill building is necessary. The folks who are benefiting are clearly the trainees because they're becoming employed. But it's also the community where they're working that gets new housing, gets improvements to housing, that gets important public service projects done. It's the employers who are able to fill their workforce. And I think it's also the state of Vermont. I mean, the government was what I mean, because of the new tax revenues and, that are generated through that employment that's otherwise wouldn't be possible. Essentially, we're taking people who are not working, helping them get the skills needed, and then they become gainfully employed, tax-paying participants in the economy. The size of the impact is pretty substantial. I mean, Resource, I just looked up, since the Serve, Learn, Earn was first funded in 2001, we've had over 400 trainees who've enrolled thanks to that SLE funding. I'm saying Resource has had. We've awarded 600 industry recognized skill certifications. We've had over 70% get placed with an employer within that first 3 months after graduating. And the average wages are $20 an hour for the intensive trainees and about $18 an hour for our youth build trainees. And so I think we're achieving strong impact and outcomes. And I'll just finish with some examples of some trainees who, and I'm not going to use their names to respect their confidentiality, but a HireAbility client who was longtime disconnected worker, hadn't been working. He graduated this fall from our heavy equipment course, and he just got hired by the Agency of Transportation. Maybe he's going to be driving one of those named snowplow trucks. I'm guessing it's probably been busy this year. A weatherization graduate, it was in prison his entire adult life. He got out of prison, enrolled in one of our weatherization training, graduated and has gotten a job and been employed since July with Addison Residential Construction Company. And he's happy, he's making money, and he really feels like he's making a difference. Houston is a Youth Build Barry trainee. He grew up in Orange, also spent time in Barry. School was not a good replacement for him. He was passing, but he was just disconnected. He wasn't succeeding. He didn't enjoy it. And he shifted over to Youth Build, where he's been thriving and really been able to contribute, been doing a lot of flood rebuilding work there. And lastly, I don't know, some of you might have heard Isaac. He's a Youth Build Burlington trainee. He is a new American, originally from the Congo, resettled in Vermont. He's learning English. You might have understood that last night when he spoke. And he feels fulfilled by being part of a small team that's doing important work. And I think that's a key feature of all of these Serve, Learn, Earn programs, is that we are giving, we're making a real difference, doing concrete work that gives people new skills and gets them employed. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate the past support for the whole program. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, including any federal. I mean, I can jump into maybe try to answer the federal funding. So Resource has about a 10 million annual budget. About 20% of that is federal grants. You know, our funding is pretty diversified, including a lot of funding earned revenue from our thrift stores and our reuse programs. But 20% is significant. About 13% of that 13% is awarded contracts, which we feel should be pretty safe. But as Ronnie has figured out, that unfortunately there's real uncertainty even with awarded contracts, whether those contracts are going to be honored and whether there's going to have to be legal battles over it, which certainly is going to be impactful to programs because those take a long time to play out. About 7% of those government grants are new future, and that includes the SLE funding, which so we're funded through June, but then next year is that's part of the reason we're here talking to you now, is so that we're hoping you'll extend that funding and continue that support. I think that we have some resilience because of the diversification of our funding, so that our programs aren't going to go away even if the federal funding disappeared. But certainly things would be harder, and it might impact some of the programs we run. We'd have to scale back. We pay a stipend to our trainees. This is a direct, giving income to people who otherwise would have very little income at all. And it allows them to invest in their own training. That wouldn't be the first thing we would want to cut, but it might be the only way we would continue a program that otherwise couldn't operate. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Tom.
I'll turn it over to Breck Knopf from CC.
Off with Vermont Youth Conservation Corps. Tom, I was sitting over there I was thinking that the last bit you said was so inspiring, but then you started talking about federal funds. But the participant stories were great. I mean, that's the why of our work. So it's really wonderful to hear that. I want to reiterate the note of gratitude that Kate ended with. It's really great to have been invited into this committee earlier in the session. It's great to be back. Last month when we were here, I tried to paint a higher level, broader overview of BYCC and the Serve, Learn, Earn collaboration. So I don't want to repeat much of what I said, and instead I'll use today as an opportunity to really highlight just a few specific initiatives that are a window into this summer's programs and the priorities and thinking of the organization. So I'll start there. And the first initiative that I would highlight that we're really excited about is the expansion of our carpentry and trades work that we do in partnership with Vermont Department of Forest Parks and Rec, FPR. So a little bit of history and context here. For the last 10 years, we've fielded crews in partnership with FPR. And in that model, we're working alongside FPR carpenters who act as teachers, mentors for our crews. And historically, or prior to this year, we've just been in District 5. So that's up in the Northeast Kingdom. It's Maidstone, Molly's Falls, kind of up in that neck of the woods. But what's really exciting is that this year we're going to be expanding into all the other regions of state parks. And it's a way to expand the impact that our crews have, but it's also a way to expand the workforce development training outcomes that the organization sees. So that those projects, they range from new roofs on lean-tos, building kiosks, building steps down to a waterfront, building a small structure to house wood. It's introductory level carpentry skills that is, a gateway into the trades for many folks. This summer, we'll do a total of 36 crew weeks and work with Forest Parks and Rec. That's divided up into 2 different types of projects. 25 of those weeks will be on those carpentry type based crews, and the other 11 weeks will be some of our forestry crews. So on any given state park, there are hazardous trees that could fall in a lean-to campfire area, and the state parks needs to take those out. And so our crews go in there and they remove those trees. So those 2 programs are opportunities to incorporate training and credentials. So OSHA 10, game of logging, U.S. Forest Service types of chainsaw safety courses. Those are all ways in which the participants gain not just stipend, but credentials, certifications, things of that sort. The other new initiative that I want to highlight here is, and Kate mentioned this, a timber framing pre-apprenticeship. So we're launching that this summer. It's going to be a pilot program. We're doing that in partnership with one employer in particular, Building Heritage. So Elliot Lothrop, who's the principal there, is going to be the lead instructor. There are 2 other instructors who will be mentoring, teaching those participants. It'll be a mix of new construction as well as historic preservation. It'll be a 17-week experience. But both the work that we're doing in Vermont State Parks, the carpentry work that we're doing in Vermont State Works and Parks, as well as the timber framing work, those are examples of an organizational shift where we focus more and more in recent years on career pathways and workforce development. And we're enrolling a higher percentage of young adults as opposed to high school students. So within the education community or industry, if you will, we think about youth as through high school and then young adults or post-high school. And so VYCC has made a deliberate shift to enroll more young adults proportionally. And the reason for that is we're looking at Vermont needs, and we see that Vermont employers really need more well-trained people to be prepared for the workforce. And so having us focus on that specific demographic is a way of being responsive to Vermont needs. Just as Tom ended with, some participant stories, I want to just rattle off a short list, an incomplete list, but a short list of employers that we're working with and connecting to. So within the maple sugar industry, we have graduates who are now working for Roanoke Maple or Purrington's Maple. Red Start, which is a forestry and habitat management consulting firm, where we have graduates, alumni who are going there. Within the construction industry, Red House, Building Heritage, New Frameworks. Within the nonprofit sector, the Vermont Food Bank, the Capstone organizations, the Green Mountain Club, Catamount Trail Association. Within the ski industry, Bolton Valley, Sugar Bush. So kind of regardless of the sector, you'll find VYCC graduates who are there. Couple other final thoughts. I want to emphasize the importance of being able to provide stipends or wages for all of our participants. That is essential to making the experiences, this training and workforce development experiences accessible. And if we have a reduction in funding, then we will reduce the amount that we can compensate our participants. It's going to make it so that the experience is less and less accessible. So there's a direct correlation there. Like Resource, VYCC's revenue streams within a $4.8 million operating budget are fairly diverse. Just under 30% are federal in nature. Within that federal slice, there's a whole array of different partners. So National Park Service, U.S. Forest Service, AmeriCorps. I'd be remiss if all of us didn't really thank Serve Vermont for being great partners. And then we were also just secured a new Northern Borders Regional Commission grant to expand our forestry initiative. And for each of those different federal funding streams, there's different levels of vulnerability. But I think the real impact would be on the amount that we're able to compensate our Corps members and the number of Corps members who come into the program. So my last thought here, and it's altogether fitting that Carolyn Weir is here, because every once in a while you hear a phrase that just resonates so quickly. And I once heard you say that Vermont is program rich and systems poor. And I think as you've heard the different organizations who've come and talked about our work, you'll hear that we're in different parts of the state. We serve different demographic groups, different age groups. We have different projects that we do. And before Serve, Learn, Earn, before we all came together, we were working in silos. And now what we're trying to do and what Serve, Learn, Earn has made possible is a much more coherent approach to workforce development that can serve a growing number of Vermonters. We're seeing the length of our programs extended. We're seeing the number of participants. We're seeing the value increase. We're seeing the compensation for participants increase. And all these are things that are made possible by inter-organizational collaboration. And then that's inter-organizational collaboration is in turn partnering with state, federal partners. So it's been really wonderful to see the growth and the evolution. Chairman Marcotte, I'm thinking back to 4 or 5 years ago when we were first in here, and the data that we're showing here is, we didn't even dream of that. And so I'm proud of ourselves and grateful for the way in which you all have made this possible. So thank you.
Questions are right.
Hi.
Hi, good to see you. Yeah.
Are there other workforce training programs in the state that you have either considered reaching out to or that have reached out to you to join this program?
Yeah, I can take that, but then I also might hear from Kate too. So we began a partnership with Northwood Stewardship Center last year when Kate's at one point showed the project map and the participant map, and there was a real gap up in the Northeast Kingdom, and we said, okay, let's address that. And Northwood Stewardship Center is another conservation corps. It was great to have them come into the fold. What would you add, Kate?
I would also say Vermont Adult Learning is already a partner with Vermont Works for Women and Resource in their Energy Works training. That's a really logical partner, and we've expressed interest. We work with them already and have said, should funding become available, if we could expand this, they would be a great partner to have involved with. And it already is their program. Energy Works, just to remind you, I think they've probably been in to talk to you about it, but 2 weeks training folks on heat pump installation. And so one of the things that we've posited to them is like, could you include a service element in that program and they would be excited about partnering with our housing agencies on seeing if they could partner with them about practicing and installing. So yes, we have a list and would really be open to considering that. And especially with Sabina Haskell now in her role, hoping that she could help us facilitate that expansion as well.
I think too, to add to that really quickly, there's smaller workforce development programs that are just getting off. And I think a lot of them in the maker spaces that are going across the state. A lot of our programs work within them to help build up. A lot of those were in Hatch and Brattleboro, Mint in Rutland, and Generator in Brattleboro. There's a new one going in the Northeast Kingdom. I think those are ways that our established workforce programs can also help invest in smaller ones to build those up to capacity. Like Mint in Rutland, we're already talking about how can they keep trailblazers so we can go take our staff somewhere else to do that. And so that's just one other way to also build up those workforce programs.
And they usually have the space, the facility to do that. Yeah.
Well, I'll add that we're having some conversation with the Mint about youth build expansion. Currently we have that in 2 communities. We would like to expand to other communities. We think the model is good and should allow that. And there's interested school districts, but there's it's a big leap, of faith in terms of the funding, that we have to make. So.
Well, I'll make a self-serving point here, which is it's hard to expand when you're uncertain about funding. So the degree that this committee can recommend increases to the base funding allows us to really make that leap that Tom was just talking about.
And I would just add too, is that we have, I'm in discussions with Vermont After School right now about doing a joint application for private philanthropy. And I think too, when we know that our public funding is secure, we're able to take perhaps additional risks or think even more growth mindedly with our private philanthropy to seek out new partners. So that's another way that base funding enables us to grow.
I might ask a harder of a question, but how linked to CTE are you? Both sides, youth and adult ed?
Yeah, so many of our programs utilize those spaces and the career centers as their programs rotate throughout the state. I think we're also, and Rhonda can speak, Vermont Works for Women is very connected to all our CTE programs in terms of increasing the number of girls and gender expansive individuals who take those programs. The thing that we find and what we've heard from CTE instructors is that actually getting them work-based experience is more difficult due to concerns around insurance and risk that an employer might need to take. And so many students come out of our program and utilize our summer programs to gain that hands-on experience. That is harder for schools because we'll provide insurance, we cover that for students. So they might not get to use a chainsaw within, CTE or employer-based work experiences, but they do it UICC and they get to do those kinds of projects. Do you want to add on?
No, that's exactly right. Right now, I think we work very closely with CTE centers just to try to increase diversity across their programs. Vermont across the state still sits just shy of 19%, which is a massive increase from 13% where we were just 5 years ago of girls enrolled in non-traditional occupations. The difficulty sometimes with CTE is you're working with each individual school. So we have great relationships with certain districts that have really invested in the programming and have really grown the programming across the spectrum of what we can provide to see those numbers increase, but we do that school to school right now. So not only middle school to middle school, high school to high school, but CTE center to CTE center. And our biggest avenue is to try to not only recruit more, but keep them retained and graduating into those programs. So connections and growing, opportunity to do more there.
Great, thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
When we were on break, I was having a conversation with the former commissioner of the Department of Employment and Training. She had a lot of questions on, the new role of the workforce, executive director of workforce strategy and development, and why isn't the Department of Labor just doing that work? And we had a good conversation and then, started talking about all the nonprofits that are in the state and how many duplications do we have? And that's part of the work of this new ED. But, I started talking to her about Serve Learn Earn. And it's a perfect example of nonprofits joining together, come up in a common way of applying their education to our workforce. And I think it's, this is a great model that I think, we continue to recognize and to promote. So keep up the good work.
All right. Thank
you
you.
all. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks you. Sorry for taking extra minutes of your time.
You feel good.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
Very happy to be here. Thank you. Rebecca's going to drive the slides from over on the bench. Would anyone like printed copies of the slides that were shared, or you're all accessing them digitally? Okay, great. Well, hello, good afternoon, and thank you for inviting my testimony, Chair Marcotte and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Carolyn Weir, Executive Director of the McClure Foundation. We are a 30-year affiliate of the Vermont Community Foundation, and we work to close opportunity gaps and strengthen Vermont communities by making college and career training the easy choice, especially for young Vermonters. And for us, that really takes two forms. It's grant making and public-private partnerships with folks here in the state. So we have long funded good ideas when we believe they have the power to close opportunity gaps and when we feel like they have the potential to generate insights that can inform policymakers and policymaking. And the ideas that we have helped to design and fund and scale over the years have informed policymaking in a couple of different ways, including federal funding for incarcerated education and community college advising here in Vermont. Also state funding for the critical occupations framework, which I know this committee is familiar with, and all of those one-time pandemic era free college courses. This is one of my favorite visuals from that era. It's on slide 8 of the handout that I submitted. And based on the particular timing of this data, we actually tie the fact that Vermont is so blue here to the graduation gift that we offered the Vermont High School class of 2020 in June of 2020 of one free course of their choosing at CCV, which I am still floored that 600 young Vermonters took us up on. And it really informed how we think about the value of highly accessible community college in the state. So by way of further introduction, another way you may know the McClure Foundation is through this brochure or a version of this brochure over the past 10 years. I'll pass these around because the latest edition of the brochure we announced with Governor Scott and Commissioner Harrington just in December. And again, this edition, the occupation that is associated with the highest demand that pays at least $30 an hour is teachers. And that's important for a lot of reasons, not least because the teacher workforce is critical, not only because of what we see in the numbers, but because of the work that they do in supporting the career development progression of young people and knowing that teacher quality is a really important component of educational outcomes for young people. So for that reason, public educator workforce is also now a pillar of our grant making strategy, especially since the pandemic when we saw that shortage move from challenge to crisis. So just by way of introduction, I'll name a couple of the ways in which we're supporting that work right now. We are supporting Vermont youth to explore careers in education through district level efforts all across the state. We are supporting program completion at VTSU for students who have to do that full-time unpaid student teaching semester to reach licensure and program completion so that they can analyze if that's an effective way to support more equitable program completion. Something like a half dozen other states have passed legislation in the past couple of years to fund that tactic as a way to grow the teacher workforce. We're also supporting new pathways to licensure in partnership with the Department of Labor and the AOE through the work that John Castle and the Vermont Rural Education Collaborative is leading, which I know you know about, the Vermont's first ever registered apprenticeship pathway to K-12 teaching, which is now being piloted in the Northeast Kingdom. And we're also supporting the retention of diverse educators and administrators by funding a range of affinity groups across a number of organizations. So that's just by way of background, but all to say that we're here as a thought partner and can share what we're learning and seeing if this committee takes up that issue at a certain point. The other grant making pillar of ours that I'm not here to talk about today is actually service to career pathways. So it's so wonderful that you just heard from the Serve, Learn, Earn crew. We're being pulled into the small state team under the auspices of the governor's office and the Department of Labor around service to career pathways and policy, and are excited to hear what sugars off that and how it can inform how we show up as a grant maker in the state around those issues. But what I have been invited to talk to you about today more in depth, and what I really encourage this committee's support of, is the Vermont Free Degree Promise. So in close partnership with CCV, and with our partners at VSAC and the Vermont School Counselors Association and the Agency of Education, we have been building on the long-time early college program here in the state administered by the Agency of Education through the Free Degree Promise at CCV. Because after 15 years of doing this work as a funder and a grant maker in the state, we have come to believe that accelerated pathways to free degrees are a real game changer for young people in Vermont. Accelerated pathways really give young people what they need, right? A good paycheck, connection to community by age 19, right? A work-ready degree, while also giving Vermont what it needs in terms of credentialed young people who are ready to work. That's important because, as this committee knows, right, Vermont continues to have the lowest college continuation rates in New England. That's true in the aggregate. It's especially true when we disaggregate it by all of the populations who stand to benefit the very most from a post-secondary credential. And so in 2022, here at the McClure Foundation, we promised young people in the Vermont high school classes of 2023 through 2026 who complete the state's early college program at CCV a second year of free courses, along with enhanced advising and living stipends. It's essentially a fast-track pathway to a debt-free degree that creates a lifetime of opportunity, and it braids a lot of funding that's already in play, right? So it pulls on federal Pell Grants, the Vermont State Grant, 802 opportunities, and right now our funds to create this highly focused, accelerated, and supportive pathway for young people who can choose any of CCV's 12 degree programs. So in your handout, we've outlined the ways in which Vermont's most promising jobs are aligned with some of the CCV degrees, as well as what you can see here, which is the breakdown of the current Free Degree Promise cohort, now pretty well scaled with CCV's degree pathways, leading to all sorts of the critical occupations that you see in this brochure. You all have the English version, but we do make 10 translations, which are available to Vermonters. So the decision to apply this model at and with CCV was highly strategic. CCV serves the majority of college students statewide, the majority of low-income college students statewide. It's where the majority of early college students have historically enrolled. And it's an engine of economic mobility. The National Strata Foundation came out with research last year that shows that associate degree completers in Vermont have the highest ROI of associate degree completers anywhere in the country. I think we're especially lucky in the state to have community college structured the way that it is. Community colleges are also serving an increasingly large percentage of high school students. CCV is not alone among its sister institutions across the country in having 25 to 30% of its students be high school age students, right? So we are now 2.5 years into implementing and really, really closely assessing this model to see if it's working and how it's working. And we are seeing that it is working to make college the easy choice. It's taken us 2.5 years and following the data to be able to learn that Free Degree Promise students are graduating at twice the rate and in half the time as community college students nationally. When I heard that for the first time, I had to let it sink in for a second. Twice the rate and half the time as community college students nationally. And when we compare what we're seeing across the model to Vermont's baseline, we know that CCV is seeing a 150% increase in the number of low-income students who are accessing early college, and more triple the number of early college completers, right, who are staying enrolled, persisting at CCV toward their associate degree. Over half of this year's cohort are first-generation college going, and the cohort itself, in terms of students from low-income backgrounds and students of color, are come at higher percentages than their peers in the general population. And that's really important because our North Star goal with all of our work, but with this model in particular, are the same as the North Star goals of Act 77, the legislation that codified the state's early college program, among many other flexible pathways to and through high school graduation in the first place, which is improved and more equitable post-secondary readiness and improved and more equitable post-secondary continuation, especially among, right, the students who have not historically been supported to choose college and career training after high school and who stand to benefit the most from a credential. So what does that mean? It means that take-up of this particular flexible pathway through community college is demonstrably more equitable. And I think that's worth celebrating. It means that more young people are choosing to stay in Vermont and more young people are supported to have a work-ready degree by age 19. These are families like Chloe's. Chloe, from Richland County, her dad, she was telling us her dad had recently retired as a correctional officer after a career, and was also a beloved wrestling coach in the area. And he and his family were planning to move to upstate New York in search of a more affordable lifestyle. And they heard about the Free Degree Promise and encouraged Chloe to continue it. Her older sister had experienced CCV and had a transformative experience. And she was feeling incredibly overwhelmed and anxious about the idea of college at all. But in the context of early college, in the context of CCV, was willing to give it a shot, thrived, and her family decided to stay. Credited the Free Degree Promise as the reason for that. The fact that early college and the Free Degree Promise are universally available is what we believe creates its appeal for low-income students. When you pair that universal concept with a community college and really target your outreach to the students who stand to benefit the most, that's how we ensure this pathway benefits those who are furthest from opportunity. And in a state with a lot of really, really narrowly scoped scholarships, and I know this committee understands that really well, we think it really requires easy to understand, universally available scholarships and opportunities to transform youth and family perception that college is within reach. That's something that was a clear learning from us out of the pandemic. I have spoken to a lot of current and prospective students. Getting close to student stories is one of the joys of our work. And I think that this model is working because young people are really ready to create the futures they're imagining, and CCV in particular is ready to serve them and ready to scale. So this is Donovan. This is Donovan's path through the model. So he blended full-time college courses in accounting in his early college year with working at his town, Richford's only grocery store. And as a part of his professional field experience class at CCV, he took a 100-hour internship with the federally qualified health center, Notch, in his region that actually runs the grocery store. So there's an incredible value exchange between his work and his learning. He graduated last spring from Richford Junior Senior High School with a bookkeeping certificate in hand and with 30 college credits toward his accounting degree. And he's continued at CCV, intends to graduate this spring. And I love the quote he shared up there, right? I could get a great job in accounting at the age of 19. That feels like a really big win for me. And Donovan is deciding whether he's continuing to a 4-year or going straight into the workforce. And a lot of the students in this cohort are doing that. Many are continuing on to 4-year toward their bachelor's degree, usually at UVM or VTSU. So those are where the seamless pathways exist, most easily for that continuation. We spoke with another Free Degree Promise student last week named Atticus. He's the first in his father's side of the family, as he tells us, to graduate from high school. And he's now at CCV as a general studies major, a Free Degree Promise student with a focus on engineering. And he gave us permission to share this part of his story. He said, as a junior, I had a 2.8 GPA. I'd failed my chemistry class. My mom was diagnosed with leukemia. It was hard to focus. I didn't have the grades to get into the schools I was interested in. I wasn't happy where I was. And that was when I really started thinking I'm not going to be able to get into college. I saw CCV as a way to further my future, and it worked. I went from a 2.8 GPA in high school, where I could barely get into any college, to a 3.8 at CCV. And now I can basically get into any college I want. He went on to share that his dad especially was excited about the cost savings, right? We hear that from a lot of students in this cohort, that they're really not sure how else they pay for it. So based on the early success, we've been invited into a national movement that is helping states all across the country equitably scale these accelerated pathways to debt-free community college degrees. They're helping us learn from other states, conduct empathy interviews with young people and with practitioners who are supporting these students in these pathways. They're helping coordinate the development of a practitioner community of practice through which high school counselors and college level advisors get space to come together to talk about promising practice and also problems of practice, and figure out how to work towards more equitable student awareness and enrollment and success in this program. In the meantime, we're committed to working really closely with CCV to support students and assess this program and how it's working. And we'll share what we learn along the way. This year's 11th graders are currently enrolling in the early college program at CCV. They're the 5th and last class. eligible for the free degree promise, given the terms of our foundation's 5-year commitment. So as we plan for the end of our 5-year commitment in FY 27, we're really encouraged by the success that it's demonstrated and are asking the state to take up the mantle of this program in a way that can continue to offer profound hope to young people as they begin to imagine their own successful futures here. So I'm encouraging this committee to put forward the Free Degree Promise bill. We're thrilled to see that it was introduced this week. It would build on this longtime state program to create accelerated associate degree pathways as a systemic workforce development opportunity for young people. And the kicker, as I see it, is that fully scaled, we think that this model would cost the general fund less than $2 million a year. This year's request is about paving the way for FY 27 by introducing legislation that codifies the program and commits the nominal amount, $250,000, to help signal to current 10th graders that they should remain hopeful that this pathway will be available to them too. Happy to answer any questions.
You mentioned that part of the funding package for this was the Pell Grants.
Yes.
I'm gonna ask the federal funding question. Because, well, I guess actually if the state is gonna take this over, it's way less of a concern. But in general, for your foundation, do you have any concerns about federal funding?
So yes, right. We have been working really closely with our partners to understand what the uncertainty in this swirl mean for them. Several of the youth serving organizations we work with, especially those that are community-based, are funded on reimbursement models that make it really hard for them to continue providing programs with confidence. There's a lot of swirl around the Department of Education and how it might look in the months to come. I think one of the things that wasn't well known in the general sense before last month is that something like 70% of the funds that flow through the federal Department of Education support post-secondary affordability, right? A lot of that are Pell Grant. We are seeing and hearing signals from the federal administration that those funds are safe. And I'm taking part in that.
Just to follow up on that, I understand. So the foundation has been supporting, the program, end of the 5-year commitment, looking for the, under 2 million in general funds to replace. It sounds like the foundation's contribution. And then I just heard some federal funding is part of the mix too. Any other state funding that's part of the, I guess, overall budget for the program?
So our foundation's funds essentially come in as last dollar. And I will say that typically speaking, our foundation isn't in support of last dollar funding models for college access, because what it does is create, it of course requires exploring eligibility for FAFSA and the Vermont State Grant. And what it can lead to is a young person waking up in August, having graduated from high school, seeing their friends going off to college and saying, wait, I've changed my mind, and having it be too late to qualify for that support. In the context of this program, when the cohort is known a full year ahead of time, you can really layer in those extra supports to make sure they have what they and their families have what they need to complete the FAFSA, work with VSAC, and make sure that they're exploring eligibility for that aid. So the federal Pell supports come in, as does the Vermont State Grant and 802 opportunity. Those last two are state funded, and then anything beyond that, plus support to evaluate, administer, and promote the program, and the the enhanced advising and the living stipends that go to students are currently funded by the McClure Foundation.
It was the 802 funding, is that it?
Yes.
Where's that in the budget? And what was the other state funding?
The Vermont State Grant. So that is the state funding that kicks in for students who are eligible for Pell after after completing the FAFSA. And 802 opportunity. 802 opportunity is state funding through VSAC that makes community college affordable for families who meet income eligibility thresholds.
So thank you so much for being here. I think think it's a great program. I think the presentation is amazing and I have lots of wonders, but I'm going to ask the direct questions. Early college is available to anyone, whether they need financial assistance or not. And this program is also available to those same students, whether they need financial assistance or not. Is that accurate?
That's true.
And then, as we mentioned, 802 opportunity is available for students who need the income support, need the support, right? Because families have. So, and we have that program, and that program will kick in for these students, and we can wrap around them through the early college program if we plan ahead in the same way. Yes.
Yeah, yes. Yes, and right. So that is absolutely true in a technical sense for families making under $75,000 a year right now, right? Part of the challenge in Vermont, given as we see it, given the kind of mountain of narrowly scoped scholarships, is that it is really hard to move from technical eligibility, right, for specific scholarship supports into the public perception that college is within reach. And so part of this model has been to lean into the design value of universality, right? That it is available to everyone, pair it with a community college, in the hopes of really breaking through this very deeply held story in the state that community college, specifically and college in generally, is simply not affordable. That universal aspect, when paired with a community college and paired with a lot of wraparound supports, I think we have really seen invite young people to consider their futures in a different way, especially those who may qualify for 802 opportunity and have no idea that they do, not identify as quote unquote low income in that sense.
I guess we could, right, with the early college cohort, we know who they are, as we said, a year in advance, set up a much smaller technical assistance program to get them the supports that they need in plenty of time to make it very clear to them that their college is paid for or supported, right?
That they could, yeah, so
because funds are so limited right now, and we're just trying to figure out how to stretch every single dollar and how to make sure that we really protect education for students, right? So
yes, I really appreciate this line of questioning. And we celebrate and champion 802 opportunity, especially in a state that is losing the community college affordability race, right? And losing residents because of it, right? Folks are looking at every other border and saying, I can go to community college more cheaply if I lived here, here, or here. So seeing the state's investment in 802 opportunity has been something we celebrate. It's also part of why this model is so inexpensive. This model, as we see it, is different from what 802 opportunity can provide because of all of the wraparound supports. And that's really why the model costs as little as it does. A lot of the budget actually is around those wraparound supports, making sure that the students on these pathways have enhanced advising, that we're supporting aligned advising systems between high school practitioners and community college advisors, especially in that early college year where there are still some problems of practice to work through, right? Especially when we're seeing more equitably scaled take up.
Do you have data on the income level of families or students that went through this program?
We have low-income data as best as we can. We're working really hard on data sharing agreements right now between the Agency of Education, CCV, and VSAC, right? Which, as you probably know, runs into some hurdles. But as we uncovered last month, self-reported data from applying students matches pretty well the free and reduced lunch data that the AOE has, which matches pretty well Pell eligibility data from the students who are supported to complete the FAFSA. So we can say that 40-something+% of students are both Pell eligible and qualify for free and reduced lunch, alongside the over half who are first generation.
Can you share more specifically about the wraparound services y'all offer?
So young people who access the state's early college program can do so at one of three institutions in the state, right? CCV, VTSU, and Norwich. So we're talking about the community college system. And so students who enroll in early college at CCV can take courses either in person or online. They're really encouraged and supported to take at least one course in that first semester in person as a way to build connections and a culture of belonging. But it's also a real asset that the community college system with 12 locations across the state and a 30-year history of online modality for course delivery can offer virtual access for students. So a lot of the ways in which students are supported to build community is actually curricularly through their course experience. Alongside that, students have access to an academic advisor and enhanced career advising. We've really made sure that the CCV advising team, as they serve more high school age students, have what they need to serve students who are a part of the Gear Up program, students who have explicit mental health needs, students who need accommodations in the classroom, had a 504 IEP in high school. And so those were some of the advising enhancements that we've been offering. We're also working really closely with students themselves to pilot a student ambassador program where students are paid and supported to help build that culture of belonging with their peers and also be ambassadors to us around what young people want and need in this program they're not receiving now. That has very much informed and influenced the ways in which we're now so focused on culture of belonging because that's what they said they needed.
Just to follow up, the wraparound services, are they provided by your staff or the CCV staff or both?
Primarily CCV, in partnership with VSAC and many of the other community organizations that CCV works with.
Carolyn, when you were talking about the need for more teachers, one thing that we had started was a forgivable loan program, which is now not in the governor's recommend. Is that something, and it paid for their schooling as long as they were teaching in Vermont? And is that something you see as another program that we should be looking at continuing?
Yes, and I see that in the context of a multi-pronged educator workforce development strategy the state needs that also includes cultivating an interest in education among young people. Yes, supporting program accessibility and completion, and that's where I'd nest the teacher forgivable loan program and support that with VSAC. It's also where I'd put that work to stipend the unpaid student teaching semester that is a barrier to so many lower income college students who have to forego their actual paid job in order to do that program. Alongside things like more creative and innovative approaches to licensure, like the work that VREC is doing with the new registered apprenticeship program. And then, of course, alongside the hard work of supporting teacher retention. Takes a lot.
So along those lines, you said McClure does 5-year programs.
In this case, the Free Degree Promise, we made a 5-year commitment. Our funding portfolio, we fund everything from mini grants to practitioners and schools, with checks cut every 2 weeks. And those grants are, between $500 and $2,500, all the way up to 6-figure investments with growth stage organizations that are typically multi-year. And good examples of that would be, our work with the Vermont School Counselors Association to help them professionalize from an organization with no staff and all volunteer governance board of full-time overworked school counselors to actually hiring staff for the first time to implement the new strategic framework for school counseling in Vermont, which we're really excited about.
Karen, thank you.
Thank you for inviting me here.
Guess we gotta try to see if we can get 297 here.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's it for this week. Just to give you a little heads up of planning next week, 1:37 Tuesday morning. We'll hear from Doug Bryan at 9:30 Tuesday morning on the MTAP program, municipal, what was it, municipal technical assistance program. He's working on our letter to folks, and then the plan was on Thursday to start. Yes. I think there's gonna be a change there now, talking to the speaker. It seems like the Senate is probably gonna start that conversation on hot hit or spark, or whatever the acronym was going to be on it. I think that frees us up a little bit.
Yeah.
She wants us really focusing on CTE.
CG, yeah.
He's gonna start.
Okay.
Of course, we have that, Tuesday afternoon, we will hear from Secretary Saunders and APA on the report that's out. Hopefully give us a better direction of where they're going.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I think we need to start thinking about what do we want? What do we think? So, we'll start that conversation. Vita bill, we're gonna start next week as well. And just to give you a heads up now, the week that we come, so we're here next week, then we're off. We come back, that could be a long week. We'll be taking up UCC when we come back. Plan on moving that bill, going through it and moving it Tuesday. When we come back, the Vita bill, we need to move the CTE bill. And I'd like to also move the Secretary of State's reorganization, corporate business bill. We've got a good start on that. We've been through with David, so I know that Rick has been drafting that, so we're starting to draft it, so that time it'll be done. So that could mean some evenings that will be working. And lunches could be cut back to half an hour maybe, but that's gonna be a busy.
And some, you've
We thanks.
Yeah, you've
been
been-
using
Minute.
a lot. There we go.
So everybody have a good weekend, get some rest. Thank you for all your work this week and we'll see you.
Can we actually just, can we talk this weekend?
We-
Right?